Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the PRCA Northern Ireland's first event of 2021. Welcome particularly to all of those from Ulster University who recently joined us as partner university. It's exciting to have you on board. I would like to firstly introduce you to Deeny, who's a final year Communications, Advertising and Marketing student at Ulster University and on the PRCA Northern Ireland Committee. Kaylee's been instrumental in setting up this event, so if you want to give everybody a wave, Kaylee, and I'm sure we'll be sharing some contact details as the event goes on. So what I'd like to do first of all is introduce our fantastic panellists who come from a range of different backgrounds with a range of very different experiences. And once those introductions have been done, I'm going to hand straight over to our panelists to talk to the subject of today's seminar, which is the graduate guide. You've got every opportunity to ask questions by posting in the Q&A box. So keep those coming in throughout the discussions. And then when all panelists have spoken, we will then start looking at the questions and answering those. So lots of opportunity. So we have on today's panel, Eamon Deeny. Eamon has worked in communications for over 35 years, starting out as a journalist in his hometown of Coleraine. He spent most of his career working in a political environment across local, regional and national government. Presently, he is Northern Ireland Head of External Affairs and Professional Development for the UK Government Communications Service, which is part of the Cabinet Office. Eamon is also PRCA Northern Ireland Group Chair. Claire McKee is partner at Clarendon Executive with over 15 years experience in executive search, selection and assessment design. Claire has led on a number of senior management appointments for a diverse client base and most certainly knows her way around a CV. Geri Wright is client director at LK Communications, one of the UK and Ireland's leading strategic communications and content management agencies. Prior to this, Geri was communications manager at Phoenix Gas, following a few informative years agency side in London and Sydney. Ulster University graduate Jason Ashford has a proven track record in lobbying and strategic communications, having started his working life at Brown O'Connor Executive. He now joins us from Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service, where he is corporate communications advisor. And final year communication, advertising and marketing student at Ulster University, Eamon Stinson has just finished an action-packed placement year at Morrow Communications in Hollywood. So welcome to all the panelists. Great to have you on board and thank you very much for your time on this sunny afternoon. I'm going to first of all hand over to Eamon to give his take on the opportunities facing today's graduates. Thank you.
Hi everybody. I've had 35 years in this game, so I'm not only old enough to be most of your dads, I'm actually old enough to be most of your granddads probably. And you're probably thinking, what's he going to add to this? Well, I've got 4 kids who've all ended up doing communications. So over the last few years, I've seen how they have entered into the PR communications profession, and one is actually online today. Is still a placement student this year. So I do know the challenges that you face and the career opportunities that'll come your way. Briefly about myself, I started off as a journalist. I did a journalism training course, but I didn't get into it till I was 24, 25. So you're still young enough to, you don't have to get into your careers just yet. Go and do a bit of traveling and see a bit of the world if you need to. And the thing about it was there was 12 of us who did the course, and we all ended up in very, very different professions. A couple ended up being TV producers. One was a film producer. A couple were TV reporters. One did light entertainment television and so on as well. So there was a whole lot of different, even back in those days, in those dark days of the dinosaurs, there was different job opportunities in terms of communications. Nowadays, I think that there are so many opportunities, and I think the big thing is really to diversify, learn as many skills as you possibly can, and learn the fundamentals. So very quickly, I'm here kind of from the public sector point of view today, and the public sector for some people might sound very boring, but I have to say I've been really lucky in the jobs that I've done. I worked for the Northern Ireland government at the time of the peace process, just before the troubles came to an end, and working big things like the Oma bomb, the Good Friday Agreement. On the day that the IRA declared their second ceasefire, the one which we all enjoy to this day, I was the press officer on duty and got the call from RTE to say that this was happening, how to get Mo Mowlam to come back from London to do a press conference. So, exciting times, yes, absolutely, current affairs. But it wasn't just that hard stuff. There was also the soft stuff as well. I was 15 years in Belfast City Council as head of communications. And we did things like MTV in 2012, where you had people like, Justin Bieber and Snow Patrol and Lady Gaga all in Belfast for a few days. And I was heading up the comms and marketing around that. So that was a very exciting time as well. I was also involved in the tall ships along with LK. I'll just give you a wee shout out there. So they were involved in it as well, and that was the biggest event ever held in Northern Ireland. It attracted 500,000 people over a couple of days. And again, I headed up the comms and marketing on that, and we would have been involved, majorly involved in Titanic Belfast coming and opening up as well. So a lot of really exciting stuff. We had loads of things, like I worked on President Clinton's visit to here, I worked on President Obama's visit to here. Royal visits, prime ministerial visits, and the likes of the President of Colombia came here. We worked on all those things as well. So the public sector is quite an exciting and dynamic place to work. In my most recent job with the NIO, I worked for the Secretary of State, and I worked with 10 Downing Street. I worked with prime ministerial visits and so on as well. So I just wanted to make that at the start, to say that, there are loads of opportunities in comms and so on, and the public sector is a good option. And government press officers and government work, it used to be just in comms when I started out, you're either a press officer or you were a journalist. And now there are so many opportunities. There's digital, there's marketing, there's advertising, there's publications, there's everything that you can possibly think of. And if you think about it, I'll finish up on this as well, is that every organization now needs communications, regardless if you're a public sector, if you're private sector, if you're a major, like the police, government, all need it. Private companies, without competing in the market, image and reputation is everything to them. And when I started out, communications was just the add-on. It was just something that you did at the end, just the thing to polish things up. Or if you were in a crisis, you went to communications to pull you out of the crisis. Now communications is part of everything. You're part of the management team. You're part of the decision-making process. And it's completely turned on its head. And that's why I would encourage everybody as young people not to think about how they're going to specialize at this stage, but to go and get as many experiences and to gather up as much knowledge as you possibly can. And then you just never know where it's going to take you. I never thought when I started off as a journalist, I'd end up being head of communications for the NIO or the City Council or working for the Cabinet Office now. Never thought that was going to be the case. And I know people who end up being TV presenters, radio presenters, if that's your bag. Didn't think that's where they were going to end up either. So what I'm saying to you is that, go and get as much experience as you can, as much knowledge as you possibly can. Be flexible. Put yourself out there, write to prospective employers and offer to go in for 3 or 4 weeks or 2 weeks work experience, just to show them that you're keen. That gets your name known as well. And, that's how you get your way in. You get yourself known, and then people come looking for you. So once we get through everybody, I'm happy to take any questions on any of those matters. Thanks, Maureen.
Thanks, Eamon. Okay, well, Claire, I don't know if you've done anything with Snow Patrol. You've certainly, Eamon's been dropping the names there. Fantastic.
Eamon set a very tough act to follow, of course. Thank you. I will try to follow on from the scene Eamon has set, absolutely. My name is Claire McKee. I'm a partner with Clarendon Executive. We are effectively headhunters. We work on senior appointments throughout Northern Ireland. I know some people maybe are joining us from outside of Northern Ireland. Our focus is on the region here, and personally I've experienced across the public, private and what we call the third sector within Northern Ireland, so a very diverse range of clients, of which Eamon was one, and I continue to do some work with Eamon, so that is the connection. And while we work at a senior end of the market, I suppose hopefully some value of my recruitment experience and insight might be beneficial as you start your careers now. I suppose thinking about what recruiters and employers might be looking for. I've worked for Belfast City Council, for probably all of the councils actually in Northern Ireland, I've also worked with Belfast Harbour on communications roles across justice and policing for a number of charities where roles would be both communications, public affairs, and have a policy focus. Students joining from Belfast Met and Ulster University today, we have worked on the senior team build at Belfast Met and senior appointments at UU as well. But I think fundamentally, if I can lean on my expertise from a recruitment perspective, I would build on what Eamon's already said, which is try to create that opportunity and use your initiative as a graduate at present. Do be proactive. And I think talking to a few of the agencies that I would manage recruitment on behalf of, or who are clients of ours, they would talk about having a very clear purpose when you're job seeking. So if you haven't been able to secure either a placement or an internship at this stage, do try to secure some voluntary experience, or whether it's through a sporting group or something similar. Do think about how you can actually show your skills, your communication skills, either online through Twitter or certainly through Instagram. And thinking about the positioning and the branding that you can create both through that for yourself as an individual and prospective hire, or how you might promote something that's a passion of yours, whether it's sporting, whether it's a charitable purpose or something similar. Recruiters will look to what your digital footprint is whenever they're considering you for opportunities. So be mindful of that in terms of how you control the message and also how you promote yourself, network through those channels. Well, it seems very obvious, maybe, I think in talking to recruiters and clients of ours as to what their experience is from people who are positioning themselves for employment, communication is absolutely vital. And I know that that sounds very patronising possibly for me to say that, but being very concise in terms of how you position yourself for a role, making sure that you prepare your application and align the experience that you can bring to the role in particular. So generic CVs will not distinguish you or distinguish you from other candidates, and there'll be competition for every role that you go for. So think about the value that you can bring to the organisation, maybe any experience or particular skills that you have that would better position them. Research other people within the team, within the agency or within the organisation that they're looking to, and try to connect with them and have a conversation to understand what more of the real issues are and what the role really requires. And if looking to agencies, I would say it's always really interesting to look at who their client base is and consider what the opportunities might be for you to develop and the team that you might seek to join. That again really shows preparation, and it shows a real interest and a commitment to securing the role and will make you stand out. I think then looking at the different forms of recruitment, I've had experience across that, and it might be that there are questions that will come through this. Public sector, as Eamon has said, will tend to be very much competency-based and competency-based applications and competency-based questions through the recruitment process. Private sector will be much more about skills-based assessment, and particularly I think in entry-level comms, marketing, PR type roles, it'll be to look at your writing experience and your skill around writing, as well as some other digital type exercises. Digital skills are a real ask for in terms of a lot of the employers and a lot of the entry level roles at present. But I would continue to build on what Eamon said, be proactive. While there will be advertisements for jobs out there and graduate entry roles, take the initiative and make the approach. A lot of agencies will say often the best talent makes an approach to them, not when there's a vacancy, and to be on their radar then whenever there is a role or whenever there's a particular project that needs more capacity, you'll be a step ahead of others. So make the approach, make it personal, directed to the right person, whether it's the managing partner or the account director or the head of function. And even if it creates that connection, follow them on Twitter, follow them on LinkedIn, comment on the social media, and it creates something that you're on their radar and you can further engage whenever you've had that first opportunity to have a conversation with them. Okay, I'm happy to take any questions, maybe in terms of interview styles, interview preparation, or anything like that, if that makes sense after the other panelists have introduced themselves. Morag, I'll be guided by you.
Thank you, Claire. That's fantastic. Loads of handy hints then. I'm learning a lot as well. So thank you. Geri, over to you.
Great, thanks, Morag. Hi, everyone. It's great to have the opportunity to come on here today and have a chat with you about what careers are like within PR agencies. So just to give you a bit of a background to myself, I've been working in the PR industry now for 12 years. And I actually started off as a graduate from Ulster University in their BSc Hons Public Relations degree, which at the time was fairly new established. They hadn't even had their first batch of graduates yet, so it's still fairly new, but a very exciting course, and one that I absolutely adored, and just knew that PR was the industry and career that I wanted to go into. Unfortunately, when I graduated, the global financial crisis had hit hard, and I remember reading articles in The Guardian saying that it was the worst year on record for graduate opportunities. So for anyone out there thinking, you know, it's a terrible year to graduate in the middle of a pandemic, I feel your pain. These things happen, but I think it's important just to look for the opportunities and to make use of every bit of experience you can get. So my strategy at the time was really to apply for every graduate scheme going all across the UK and Ireland. And I was very lucky to secure a place on the Pfizer graduate scheme. Pfizer, I'm sure you will all know of now. They're obviously a very popular pharmaceutical company in the news on a daily basis at the moment. So that kind of threw me into the world of healthcare PR from the outset. And Eamon kind of referred to this earlier about not to specialise too early in your career and to get that kind of wider experience. I almost did it in reverse, where I started off specialist and I've now diversified as I've climbed up the ranks. But that really ignited a love and a passion for healthcare PR with me. And after my year had finished with Pfizer, I then went on to take up a position with Ogilvy, which I'm sure many of you will have heard of. It's a massive global advertising and PR agency over in London. So I worked within the healthcare PR team there with a range of global clients, all in the pharmaceutical industry. So the likes of your AstraZenecas, Bayers, Pfizers. And that was a really great opportunity for me to experience life in a busy London agency, working with global clients on a very strategic level. So a lot of the work we would have been doing was writing PR plans for rollout within their top 10 markets. So very much a global outlook. At the time, I was still young, in my 20s, and I had an ambition for travel, as most people do. But I wasn't quite prepared to strap on the backpack and rough it. I kind of wanted to travel with a career under my belt as well. So I made the decision I wanted to move to Sydney. And I spent sort of 6 months really studying the PR market over there, looking at agencies, getting to know them, getting a feel for which ones I would want to work with, and basically approaching them and making a pitch to them. And I was very lucky that I then secured an interview over Skype, which was quite a novelty back in the day. It's obviously commonplace now, but back then it was quite radical for someone to have a job interview over Skype for a job in the other side of the world. So that was very exciting. And yeah, I managed to secure a role there with a healthcare PR agency in Sydney. So made the move over there, which was great, and was there for a couple of years. Within that agency, it was a much smaller agency, and really we were working on a national level. So it was very much focused on the Australian population and working with Australian media, whereas before my focus would have been at a global level. So that was great experience to get a bit more immersed in kind of grassroots PR. After the travelling bug had left me, I decided to return home then to Northern Ireland. And as Morag alluded, I've had a couple of jobs here since I've returned, but most notably, I decided to make the move in-house and took up the role as communications manager with Phoenix Natural Gas, which is a large energy company here, obviously supplying natural gas. So that was great to work with them and get that experience of working in-house. Very, very different to agency. I suppose with agency, you work across multiple clients and you're a bit of jack of all trades, master of none. Whereas in-house, you obviously have the opportunity to be really immersed in the wider business and to kind of run your own department. And the panel will speak more on what that's like later. But for me, I think I'm an agency girl through and through. I missed working with multiple clients, missed the fast-paced nature of it, and just felt that I needed to go back into agency. So I was very lucky to secure a position with LK Communications, and I've been client director there with the company for the last 2 years. And just to give you a bit of a flavour of who we would work with, I work across a real mix of clients. So in the retail sector, we would work with Lidl Northern Ireland and Castle Court Shopping Centre. In terms of hospitality, we would work with Galgorm Spa and Golf Resort, James Street South Restaurant, AC Marriott Hotels. Within the charity sector, we work with Volunteer Now. And the energy sector, I've kind of held on to my energy roots there as well, and we work with Gas Networks Ireland. So it's a real mix of clients that you work on a daily basis. And for me, that's part of the fun of the job is working with a lot of different industries and sectors. So that's kind of a whistle-stop tour of my career history to date. I suppose the biggest thing that I wanted to flag is whenever I left Northern Ireland back in 2008, opportunities were limited here, and the PR industry was a lot more immature than it is now. Whenever I moved back, I was really blown away at how much the industry had developed, how many great agencies and great freelance PR professionals there are out there now, and how businesses in Northern Ireland have also become more savvy to PR. Businesses are understanding the need for it more now, and we're getting to work with a lot more clients in a lot more different industries. So for me, the industry has just boomed, especially over the last decade, and it's a really exciting time. And I suppose what I would say to you all is that there are lots of opportunities out there, so it's just about grabbing them. So if anyone has any specific questions on what PR agencies would look for in terms of candidates, or any just mentoring advice or skills advice, we can have a chat in the questions section, or you can drop me a line afterwards, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks, Morag.
Thanks, Geri. Really, loving the positive note that we ended up on as well. Hopefully that's given people a lot of optimism for what the future holds, despite what the last 12 months has been. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Jason now, who's maybe going to fight the in-house corner after Geri built up the lure of agency side. So thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Morag. Hi, everybody. My name is Jason Ashford. I'm the newer than the rest of the panelists so far. I've only been working in comms for 2 or 3 years now. So I graduated with an economics degree in 2011 in my undergrad, and I spent a couple of years kind of what Eamon was talking about earlier, just kind of kicking about and figuring out what I wanted to do. I got really into poetry for a while. I'm an award-winning poet, and I performed at the Royal Albert Hall at one point. Eventually I was sort of traveling about England and Ireland, doing a couple of gigs in turn and stuff, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So I went back and did my postgrad with Connor and the gang there at Ulster a couple of years ago in 2018, 2017. I came out of that. I didn't do my dissertation. I didn't finish my, I didn't get my master's. I got my postgrad diploma because I got a job with an MLA with Kelly Armstrong of Stormont, and so I was going to do a dissertation on political communications, and instead I went and took the job with Kelly, and from there then I moved into my job with Brian O'Connor, and then from Brian O'Connor into the fire service where I am now. So that's kind of where I have got to here. In terms of in-house versus agency, I guess, Morag, I actually think one piece of advice, if you are looking to, if you're starting your career, if you can get into an agency, do it, because the just absolute variety of stuff is fantastic. We had some really, really interesting clients, and it gives you a real opportunity to kind of diversify and try different things. I suppose there's other people on the panel with much better advice in terms of from the employer side and stuff like that, how to make yourself attractive. For me, I suppose I can talk a little bit about what I did, and it's actually kind of been touched on already. So as you're coming to graduation, as you're getting ready to go out and start looking for jobs, the first thing I do is, if I'm pretty sure the Ulster PR Students blog is still running, so if you're at Ulster, use that. See if you're not, or if you, in fact, what I would advise you to do, what I did, is set up your own. Like, it's free on WordPress. Set up a blog and write, and you can write about stuff that you find interesting or that you like, or or whatever. But as I think it was Claire was saying earlier, when people come looking for your digital footprint, they're going to see that you can write. Also, like, diversify, like, do videos, do podcasts. Like, it's really easy to set this stuff up. These are all so young and so far ahead of the tech side of things. Like, I'm a decrepit 31-year-old now, so you guys are just like, this is second nature to you guys. But it's not that difficult to set up a podcast and run it, and that kind of shows that you can do that. And I've done that in comms jobs where you come in and you say, right, why don't we use video to drive up engagement, use podcasts or whatever. I wish I'd had this kind of panel actually before I started looking for a job, because this is really helpful. There's some really useful stuff in here. I think it was Borg was saying, like, I'm jotting down notes as well. I suppose the one thing that I'd say as well is a bit like Geri. I came out of my undergrad degree into the teeth of an economic crisis, and everybody here who's graduating will be doing the same. So it is going to be challenging. And a bit like Eamon was saying, you might not have it specifically decided what you want to do yet. You might not know for certain, and you might take a while to find your first job or whatever. For me, if I had one thing to say, if I had one message for you to take away from me talking today, it's like, don't be hard on yourself when you come out. Not to blow my own trumpet, but I came out with awards and all sorts of great stuff out of my postgrad, and I went to loads of interviews where I applied for dozens of jobs, and got turned out for loads of them. So don't let it be, don't be too hard on yourself if A, you can't figure out exactly what it is you want to do, or B, that you're struggling to find a job. There will also be colleagues and peers of yours who fly off and do incredible, amazing things at potentially a different pace, and you might compare yourself to them and think that you're not quite up to that standard or whatever. But again, it's the kind of thing you have to sort of go easy on yourself. I think it's a really important message. And I suppose the other one bit of advice, I went into a job interview where I had been thinking about this, the importance of the basics of writing and stuff like that. And they'd asked us to bring along some stuff that we might potentially be proud of, or that we might like to share to show off some of our skills. And I brought like half a dozen pieces with me, and I just started handing them out at the start of the interview. And it's still cringe. Like I want to curl up in the ball just talking about it. So don't do that. Whatever you do, don't do that. And apart from that, yeah, as Geri was saying there, the PR industry here is really exciting. The public affairs industry here is really exciting. The last 4 or 5 years, like, business in Northern Ireland has kind of found its voice, and everybody is looking for somebody to give them that voice. And you're going into a professional kind of job here. So, it's, some people going to be solicitors, some people going to be accountants and stuff. And there's not, it's important to have that kind of, to treat it as a profession, because that's what it is. And, you will be given advice to senior people and feeding into sort of strategic decisions. So I think that's everything. Just as everybody else has said, any specific questions, apart from, can you recite some poetry for us? I'm not going to do that. You have to pay for that. But anything else, happy to answer. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, I was thinking about the Albert Hall for a lot of that, but no, great stuff. And I like the sort of sentiments about being kind to yourself as you find your way through. So much, yeah, I'm sure that everyone appreciates that. And okay, thank you. And Eamon, over to you.
Hi, everyone. How's it going? My name is Eamon Stinson. I am a final year student studying communication, advertising and marketing at Ulster University. I always have to take a big breath when I say that, it takes so long. But yeah, I suppose I'm a lot different to everyone here today. I have just opened my book. I have literally just wrote chapter 1, and I am just about to start my career in PR and marketing and comms, or wherever it might lead me. So I suppose as a starting point, I done my placement with Morrow Communications in Hollywood, and for the year or 14 months that it was absolutely action-packed, to say the least. I got the opportunity to work on some incredible clients, not just here in Northern Ireland, but all over. I worked on Asda. I was one of the sole operators on the Asda account, worked with many, many influencers, got great communications with the local media here. And I also worked on the likes of Dale Farm and TransLink. And it wasn't just although my role was communications assistant, I was opened up to so many different kind of opportunities and clients that I maybe wouldn't have worked on at the beginning. So I think, you know, going into placement, applying for jobs just wasn't what I was prepared for. It was the first full-time job that I had ever applied for. So I kind of probably went in a bit hot and didn't realize what the process would be like. So after a couple of interviews, I was starting to test the water and see what was for me and what wasn't. So I took a lot of time reading job descriptions and soon found out that an agency would definitely be suited to me. I just love the hustle and bustle. I love the shouting across the desks and saying, what do you think of this? Or what about this color? Or does this fit in here? And, you know, I think my comfort was in the fact that you were never alone, and working on different clients and different campaigns, you got to realize that yes, a decision might not be the best decision for that point, but it might be a good decision down the line for something else you work on. But you always had the team to fall back on, which was definitely a solid point of working in an agency. But yeah, I suppose a bit of guidance and stuff that I got from working on my placement was that, you know, if you don't succeed, it's not a big deal. You know, learn from what you didn't succeed in. And you know, I always took notes during my placement, and it was maybe a wee bit sneaky and listening into different conversations across the office and thinking, well, it's a great idea. I'm going to write that down. And I think as well for placement, all the assignments you do during uni doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me anyway. And I think when I started placement, the penny dropped. And it wasn't until I started placement that the penny did drop and that everything started to piece together. And I started to realize that, okay, everything I did learn was important. And I brought all those assignments and all those case studies and brought it into real life. And it's whenever you're sitting brainstorming for clients that you soon realize that, you know, it was really worthwhile that I wrote that extra press release for my assignment, or I done that huge advertising campaign that might not have made sense at the time, but did make sense then. But yeah, I think Claire made a great point there of researching the company and understanding what you want before you go out into the world of applying for jobs, because it's such a huge industry and there's so many different wee nooks and crannies to it that you could almost get lost in the process. But I think for me, agency just opened me up to everything and gave me lots of opportunities that I left questioning even more as to where I wanted to go to. So no, I'm definitely thankful. And for anyone who maybe isn't a graduate and is looking and has jumped on here a wee bit early and is looking for placements, do it, because I went through the mindset of thinking, no, I'll just go in a final year and I'll graduate and I'll get it over and done with, because I was a wee bit older than everyone else. But I'm so glad I didn't, because I learned more on my 16-month placement than I ever did in a lecture hall. So I suppose that's the most important thing that I took from my placement year. But yes, I'm open to all questions of all sorts. I'm not sure what I can help with, but fire them my way.
Oh, thank you, Eamon. That's fantastic, and great to see such enthusiasm. And I can see from the comments that Morrow Communications were absolutely thrilled to have you on board. So well done. Okay, well, we've got some questions coming through, so I'm just going to work through those chronologically. We have had a question here from Connor McGrath, who is asking, what can other students do to create opportunities for short-term work experience and internships for themselves? Don't know if anybody on the panel wants to step up for that and raise their hands, but it's looking at the fact that some students haven't had the opportunity to get a placement this past year.
Can I jump in really quickly there, Borg?
Yeah.
just because just when the question comes up, it depends on what you're kind of aiming for. My interest is always kind of, and a lot of my background is in political communications, but and there's sort of pros and cons to this, but it is a potential option for some people. Political parties and your political representatives are always looking people to do stuff for them for free. And I actually got some really good experience in a Westminster election campaign before I actually started my postgrad. And it is, you know, if it's something that you're interested in, there's a whole raft of comms that needs done for any kind of campaign or any kind of political representative. And often they'll, you know, it's that thing of offering a day a week or 2 days a week or whatever. And maybe it's, you know, as a media intern, it means offering them a couple of days. So that's definitely something that I've experienced and got a lot of benefit out of. You know, and it comes down to kind of, I think what Eamon was talking about, giving you that day-to-day experience of what's it actually like to write a press release and send it and land it. You know, what's it actually like to come up with social media strategies and implement them and make them work. That's one option.
Fantastic, thank you. Anybody else want to add to that? Eamon?
All right, I was just going to say in relation to that as well, that, you know, if you are going to go into an employer as an intern or, you know, for 2 or 3 weeks work placement, whatever, it is quite a challenge for employers if they have young people coming in and some of them just put them in a corner and get them a newspaper to read and say, right, off you go and do that for a week or two. So I think what you need to be doing when you're offering your services is to let them know what skills that you have. And I think the point that Jason is making is a good one. That, you know, if you have certain skills that you can bring to the table, if you do understand politics or you understand tourism or whatever it might be, if you're going to go in there for a couple of weeks, don't sit in the corner and allow them to give you a newspaper to sit and read. Actually go to whoever's in charge, the manager, whatever, and you say to them, look, is there something I can do here? I'd be happy to do this X, Y, and Z. So the big thing is be kind of, you know, visible. And use it as an opportunity to show your skills, not just so as you can go and put in your CV that I've done something for a couple of weeks. There's also the point, I think it was Claire made earlier on, you know, I'm involved in a community football club. We have around 600 members, and we're always looking to do PR and comms and getting messages out to members and so on. That's a good way of doing it as well. Come in and volunteer, do a bit of digital comms, do their Twitter, do their Facebook, whatever it is. So there's opportunities like that as well. But, you know, I think it's really important to be visible, but, you know, it's not to sit in the corner. Make it clear and be clear what it is that you want out of it as well. Because, you know, it's whenever I was in, finally, I'll just say, I was in Belfast City Council. I was the person who brought in student placements to Belfast City Council. And the advantage for the employer was they're getting a person who's just out of university or college, have learned a lot of recent skills and are very, very good. And the employer gets them quite cheaply. So that's the advantage to them. And for the student, what you get is 3 months, 6 months, or a year to put on your CV. So when you apply, and a lot of jobs are looking for years experience, you have that to put on your CV. So it has to work for both the employer and for you.
Thank you, Eamon. I was wondering, Claire, there was a question that came through about mentoring, and I thought that might be something that you could, from your experience of working with you know, senior level executives as well. Ellen asks, in the industry, is it very important to have a mentor?
I would say across everyone's career, it's invaluable to have a mentor. At a separate side, there can be coaching services you could avail of, but certainly people coming out of graduates or postgraduate programs, I think it is to seek and find someone, whether it's through your placement, to maintain that connection with someone who's given you a very strong reference or who you've worked very closely with, or whether it's through a connection, a family friend, some other introduction. If there's someone in the profession, I think it's absolutely invaluable to be able to seek their advice and also have conversations about emerging issues, about how you position yourself, about the direction that your career might take. I suppose I would maybe add to that as well. Don't be too fixated on having a very focused and clear plan at the minute. I think the balance of looking at agency opportunities against wider corporate and public sector opportunities give very different things. And I think at the early stage of your career, certainly reflecting back and talking to senior executives who we would deal with, you're now at that sort of formative stage where it is a bit of a jigsaw, and it's about understanding how industry works. It's also about understanding and educating yourself how businesses work. So coming from a comms perspective, you will have brilliant experience and have had fantastic lectures and exposure to the communications function or the PR function. It's really critical to understand how that embeds with the business that you're servicing, whether you're in-house or whether you're in an agency. So take every opportunity that you can as well. And through that, you'll create more connections, you'll create a bigger stakeholder base. Keep in touch with your colleagues now as you come out of uni, because you'll all take very different directions. And that builds a much wider understanding of all of the different opportunities across a range of sectors. There's so many emerging sectors in Northern Ireland at present. There are so many that are statutory roles that will remain there, but that they'll evolve. And it's just getting exposure to what opportunities might be. Remember, at the outset of my career, I studied law. And I thought the only route, because I was interested in law, was to become a criminal lawyer. And looking back now and with clients that I work with, you see the range of legal opportunities that there are. And communications is even more vast. How quickly it's evolved through digital change. I think it's a really exciting profession to be in at present across the comms and PR perspective. So yes, mentors are absolutely invaluable. Trusted friends and advisors, and that doesn't have to be a very formal relationship, but just someone that you can pick up the phone to or someone you can look to help you continue to evolve yourself as a professional.
Thank you, Claire. Brilliant. Okay, loads of questions coming in here, so I'm going to do my best to get through these in the next 15 minutes. We've had one here from a second-year PR student who's worried about what to do after graduating. What should students do to prepare? Jason, is that?
Yeah, I guess the fact that you're asking the question is a good sign already. Like if you're in second year and you're already thinking about how to prepare, like, you know, give yourself a pat on the back, because you kind of, you got to ask that question first. I think what everybody's talked about so far is, you know, try and pick up as many diverse skills as you can. See something really simple. Play about with Canva. I don't know how much everybody else uses it, but like get on Canva and muck about with it and teach yourself how to use it for social media stuff. It's really simple to use, and you can create graphics and stuff that look quite sort of impressive and quite professional. But yeah, diversify. And if you're doing stuff, I suppose a great piece of advice I got when I was sort of knocking about after uni, after my undergrad, was, you know, you can do whatever you want in your 9 to 5, and you can, but between your 5 and 9, you can go out and do loads of stuff. You know, you can start a blog or start an event. I have loads of experience in event planning from running gigs in the Republic and across in Great Britain and stuff, that had nothing to do with a planned comms career, but you know, lean into what you're passionate about, and you'll find a lot of experience there as well. It's really helpful later.
Great, thank you. Question here, besides writing, what's the most important skill to have in an entry-level job? Geri, is that something that you could comment on?
Definitely. So, I mean, I think you've touched on the most important one for us, arguably, is writing skills. Writing is the bread and butter of a PR professional, and it's something we do day in, day out. So, you know, I definitely encourage everyone to really focus on their writing skills, and, you know, think about how they write content for different platforms. I think also it's important that when you make the switch to PR agency side, when you're developing press releases and content, you know, that your writing style will switch to kind of putting yourself in the mindset of a journalist. So you might find at university you're writing very lengthy essays, whereas when you make that switch to agency, you're trying to write punchy copy that really gets the key messages across very succinctly, very quickly. So there is a bit of a shift in writing skills when you transition into your career, but that's all something that can be developed. So writing skills definitely important. I think for us as well, within an agency, we consume news on a daily basis. So someone who's very switched on and media savvy is really important. So even at this stage, if you're still, studying, you mightn't have any media relations right now, but it would be helpful to really start to engross yourself in the media. Learn what the publications are like, learn who some of the journalists are, what their content is, what their style of writing is. And that will just really give you a jump start on when then you start in your career and start to build media relationships. I know for us, media is the absolute first thing we do in the mornings. So before I get out of bed, I'll have read the 3 daily papers. Throughout the day, I'm constantly refreshing Twitter, breaking news alerts on my phone. And also because we work across a whole range of clients in different sectors, we also are very immersed in sectoral news as well. So a lot of the trade magazines we would read cover to cover just to ensure that we're really ingrained in our clients. So consumption of media is something that you'll do on a daily basis. And if there's a way to get ahead of that now and start to familiarize yourself with the landscape, I think that would be really helpful. And I suppose finally, I would just say about building your personal brand during this time. So the graduate landscape is competitive, and I suppose anytime we have job openings, we would receive a lot of CVs, and it can be hard to achieve cut through. So my advice really for anyone applying for an agency role is really to think about starting to build your personal brand from the outset. And what I mean by that is your professional reputation and getting that off on the right foot from the outset. So very much having a presence on LinkedIn, having a very strong corporate kind of profile on there, looking to upskill in areas. As Jason mentioned, blog writing is fantastic. Employers do stock your channels. So if we do see a blog ever mentioned on the CV, we're kind of straight on it looking to see what the content is and the writing style and the skills there. So anything that you can do to really upweight your personal brand will stand you in good stead.
Thank you, brilliant. Okay, moving quickly on. Maybe Eamon or Kaylee, first year student, I'm afraid it will take me a while to understand how the industry works and struggle to apply what I learn in the industry. How can I make the most of building skills throughout my uni experience?
I actually wrote a blog post on this recently. I know Connor shared it with a few of the students, but it was just about how, like, for second year students, how they can kind of get a wee bit of experience, and things like them Google, trying to their Google certificates. You can do all them marketing programs online at the moment, writing blog posts, and I would say there's a lot of local businesses at the minute that if you volunteered even for a week or two to take over their social media, I'm sure they'd really appreciate it. I'm sure there's probably a butcher down the town who's maybe isn't on social media, you could even give them a social media presence, and things like that I think would just work perfect in your CV. But as I said, even like the PRCA and stuff, just get involved in everything you can, because it doesn't take a lot of your time. It's just making that commitment. So I would just say, just get involved in everything, because Connor does send a lot of emails for Ulster University about different opportunities, so I would just jump on them all.
Thank you. And not being ageist at all, but another question here from Rachel. Eamon, do you have any advice for someone graduating later in life? I'm never sure whether mentioning my age or being a mature student is a hindrance, a positive, or makes no difference to employers. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I was 25 before, I was 24 and I did the journalism course, and I was 25, and everybody else in the course was just fresh out of school, 18. So I was the old guy amongst them. And the thing about it is you've got, and I'm not being disrespectful to everybody else, you have more worldly experience and knowledge. You've probably got a clearer picture in your head of what you want to do. You probably have a better understanding of the likes of what Geri was talking about in relation to current affairs and the media and all those sorts of things. I don't think it's a hindrance at all. I think that many employers will be looking for that. I mean, there will be employers who will be looking for young people who understand digital and all those sorts of things. But the older skills are still important in knowledge. And if you're, unlike me, an old dog who's willing to learn new tricks, then you've really got the best of both worlds, And just in relation to what somebody else has said earlier on, just about writing, and I think it was Geri again was saying, do look at your newspapers, listen to the way broadcasters they've only got a minute and a half to get across a story to their audience, and listen to the way that they do that. And you know, again, as referring to the older people, we read our newspapers in the old format, and it's not a bad thing to do, because you get a whole list of stories. You can see how things are kind of presented. But the bottom line in all of this, and it's to use a sort of communications analogy, if you're sitting on a news desk and you get 100 press releases from all the PR agencies and government bodies and everybody else coming across your desk, your phone is ringing, people are shouting across the room at you. You know, you need to be selling your story in the first 20 or 30 words. So your intro of your press release, your intro of what you've sent in. And it's the same in terms of selling yourself, whether you're an older person or you're a younger person and you're going for a job. You need to be able to, you know, sell yourself in very early on. So when people are sifting through your application forms or whatever, there's something that stands out for them. They go, yeah, that person really is somebody that we're looking for. So I think, you know, I certainly, you know, I don't know what that older person is. I'm 60, about to turn 60. I'm about to come to the end of my current contract. I could possibly be looking for work. I have no chance. At least if you're 20 or 30 years younger than me, or you're in me a shout. But I think people will look for experience as much as looking for young people with new skills.
Encouraging news, Eamon. Just quickly dipping back into a question earlier about data. We haven't talked a lot about data, but the question here was about will we need data analytics skills for as PR practitioners in the few years ahead? Jason, is that something that you come across in your day-to-day work?
Yeah, there is a bit. I was going to jump in there and say that with that question about what's the most important skill to have, I think the ability to do, you know, knowledge of Google Analytics and sort of social media analytics and all this kind of stuff. Because we've kind of touched on it a lot in the panel today about sort of PR and comms roles at that kind of higher strategic level and new stuff. You know, when I was with Kelly, when I was with Brian O'Connor, in my current role in the fire service, you know, senior managers, owners of businesses, all these people, they want to see hard sort of figures to say, you know, we've reached this many people and it's meant that, and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, absolutely. And I think there's also, there's going to be much more of it in the future. So that kind of ability to, that kind of skill set, if you have that, you're already setting yourself sort of apart. And was it Kaylee was talking about the Google certificates? I'm pretty sure there's one of those that is to do with Google Analytics and stuff. So you can literally show up to job interview saying, yeah, I understand this and can do it, and here's my certificate for it. So 100%, I think it'd be really, really important, because that's, I think everybody here probably agrees that you know, one of the most important things we do is being able to measure the impact of the work that we do to then show people, you know, why it's important.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, I think we're getting there. There was one.
Right. Just before you leave, I didn't unmute myself quick enough. So I the last 2 or 3 years I've been working with the UK government and the Cabinet Office in London, and in relation to that stuff, I mean, every campaign they do, everything that they do now is involved in inside audience insight, and you know, all that data stuff is hugely important. And then at the end of it all, evaluation. Is all that stuff as well, and these are all things which are becoming increasingly important. I mean, I do take issue with the UK head of communications, who says that communications is now a science. I don't think it is a science, but he is absolutely adamant that it is, and I think that they've lost the central point to me, which is getting out messages to people, to audiences. But having said that, that's the way the industry is going, and certainly in terms of people developing campaigns and all that kind of stuff. The data part of the insight part of it is hugely important. So it's becoming, you know, a very important part of it.
Yeah. I would maybe add to that as well. We would say across a range of employers, the development of the profession around data analytics and insights will inform strategy. So, you know, there will be the creation of more of those types of roles. They won't necessarily mean then that at entry level roles that you are client facing necessarily all of the time, but sometimes really interesting strategic roles will develop where you're helping shape the growth of the business, whether it's the agency or the strategy of the organization that you're employed by. I think there are very different personalities and individuals involved in comms and PR, and roles will play to people's personal preferences and their personal skills as well. The data insights and analytics piece is massive within FMCG at the minute, and I think from a comms perspective it's going to be ever more important.
Yeah, and I suppose if I can just wrap up on this question as well, I suppose for us in every campaign that we do for every client, we produce an evaluation report. Evaluation is hugely important to the client in order to demonstrate the impact and value of PR, particularly whenever the client needs to report to the board of directors. So it's something that is bread and butter in an agency, and it's hugely important. Data plays a role in that, and certainly all of the statistics in terms of reach, OTS, Google Analytics, social media engagement, they all form a really important part of the evaluation report. We subscribe to the AMEC Integrated Evaluation Framework as our method of evaluation, so that's obviously much wider and encompasses other outputs and impacts, but data does still form a big part of that, and usually it's the part that the client's eyes dart to first in terms of impact and measurement, so hugely important. And I think too as well, just to echo what Claire said, that data is also really important in informing strategy. And if you read on some of the PRCA and CIPR case studies, some of the case studies that win gold awards, some of the best PR campaigns are based on research and data insights. And I feel that sometimes if you're struggling to know what direction to take a campaign in, research can sometimes plug that gap and give you the knowledge to then create a strategy and implement a really hard-hitting PR campaign from it. So its role is hugely important, and it is something that you would use every day typically in your role at an agency. So definitely one to keep developing and keep an eye on.
You're all just letting ideas flourish from my head as you're speaking, but I think probably one of the biggest things that helped me during my year, and of course it was only a year of experience, but maybe talking from a student who is still taking all of the advice that you guys are saying as well, LinkedIn has been such a massive part for me, myself, and I know there's a lot of people in my class who have been approached on LinkedIn without even, looking for a job, and a job has fell into their hands. And yes, during a global pandemic, these things do happen. And as they said, creating your footprint and all is also important, but also using that as a form of knowledge as well. I find, following local companies on LinkedIn and following big campaigns and all those different things from start to finish, it kind of gives you an insight to things that maybe employers don't expect you to know, and you are jumping in saying, well, look, I seen this campaign roll out and I thought it was really good, and just different things like that maybe stands you out from the rest, I found very useful too.
Yeah. One other wee point, if I could add on, there was a question earlier about some short-term opportunities, or if people had struggled to get internships. We haven't maybe talked about recruitment agencies in the whole space of the recruitment world. And I do think if you've got a CV prepared, be conscious of the format, make it really compelling and stand out. So not just a standard Word document, but register with a few agencies. A lot of recruitment agencies will have different clients. A lot of them will be on what's called a preferred supplier list. So they will be the go-to person for councils and public sector organisations, or for manufacturing organisations who might have very short-term requirements, whether that is to cover a period of absence, whether it's actually called an administrative type role, but whenever you read through the detail and understand the detail and speak to the recruitment consultant, it actually might be within the communications department. So create those opportunities, keep in contact with recruiters in the recruitment consultancy world. There are a number of really reputable, great agencies around Belfast, and find out who they service and build up that understanding. Have your CV with them and just revisit them every few weeks to find out if anything's changed or any new briefs are coming through. And those can be a brilliant foothold in. A 6-month contract or a maternity cover or something else can be the start of a really exciting period of time. And if nothing else, can be a really good 6-month project that allows you to further position yourself and lean on that experience if you haven't had that placement so far.
Thank you, Claire. Fantastic advice. I think we could go on. I think there is definitely a need for another follow-up event. I'm open to hearing about any suggestions from attendees or panelists. Kaylee, do you want to just have the last word in terms of sort of contact?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for coming along today, all the students and panelists, of course. As a graduate, like, I got so much insight out of it, so I hope everyone else did as well. Just following up what Claire said about like making connections, I would definitely start that today. Following all our panelists on LinkedIn and Twitter. And if you have any questions at all after this event, I think Morag is going to send you all my email address, because I'm the student representative for the PRCA Northern Ireland, but I'm sure anyone from the UK as well can just pop over some questions and I will pass them along for you. Or if you have any other information, just send me an email as well. But thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. That's great. Well, we'll tie it up there, and I very much appreciate everyone's time, and I hope you found that useful. Thank you.